Play golf pain-free forever with these keys to longevity. Episode 868.
This is Golf Smarter.
Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Chris.
Thanks so much, Fred. Good to be here.
It's good to have you back on. Love talking about how we can make sure, how we can ensure that we're going to be playing golf the rest of our lives. And, you know, it's one thing to work on your swing mechanics. It's another thing to work on your mental game. But the most important tool in your bag, as we've said over and over again, is your body. And
it's the
probably the most neglected tool in your bag too, right?
It's the most used and the most neglected, 100%.
It really is. I mean, it's like we'll spend $500 on a club that you hit 10 times during a round, hopefully 12, right? But you spend $500 to go get your body assessed? Not so much.
That's when we have to think about it, right?
Yeah, right. It's like, well, do I really want to do that? I'm okay. Really? Do you really want to go there?
Exactly.
Yes, you really want to go there.
You really do, because it's everything else that everybody has no problem, spending the time or the money, the clubs and the lessons, and it's just such a it's from a application standpoint. None of that matters if your body can't move from point A to point B. All of that is so much harder. If we take care of our bodies and our bodies can do what they're supposed to do, it's like kind of knocking that one domino down that makes everything else easier. It just removes such a big variable that is so controllable. And there's not much that's really 100% controllable in the game of golf, unfortunately.
No, there isn't, except where you have to go to the next tee box. I mean, that is true. Yeah, I just got back from Japan. I was on vacation in Japan recently, and the first thing that just comes to my mind, I mean, when you walk around the city, any city there, is, wow, Americans are overweight. Because the Japanese are not. I mean, yes, we met with sumo wrestlers, and those guys are enormous. Yeah. And there are some tall people, but they are not overweight. And I think that we have a real problem in this country.
It becomes a stark difference, that's for sure.
And then you go out on the golf course, and there's guys sitting in a golf cart, drinking, eating, shoving food.
And maybe this will help, Fred. We actually have data looking at weight relative to club head speed for golfers. And the interesting
let's go there.
Yeah, let's go right in there, because I think one of the cool things was, I'll never forget the first time we presented this. We had a group, maybe 50, 60 golfers. There were some parents, some kids, and then obviously some older, say 60s, 70s. And so we're presenting. We say, all right, so looking at all the things that can impact club head speed. And so for kids, one of the biggest predictors of club head speed is weight. So the more mass you have, you're generally going to swing the club faster, right? And so you look across the yard and everyone's like, yeah. Then you go, well, bad news for all you adults who are doing that. It actually flips, and there's actually a negative correlation to club head speed and weight as you get older, right? So, the rationale being that, kids, as they're older, typically are, they're more, it's muscle, or they're younger, they're able to move it, they have mobility, they can actually leverage the mass. So force equals mass times acceleration. For the adults, a lot of that mass, how do I put this, is a little soft, generally speaking.
Come on, be blunt, my friend.
Let's just say the beer belly doesn't help your club head speed. So and we actually said, it was actually one of the cool kind of like happenstance findings as we were kind of combing through all of our data, saying, wow, something terrible happens at age 41 to people's club head speed. But it's kind of like it goes up and then it kind of hangs out, and then literally like a cliff, Fred. There's a cliff at 41 and speeds just drop. And that's also where we start to see really kind of the weight and speed discrepancy, which was a really interesting finding.
Well, I was going to use the word flexibility, but you kept using mobility. I think that's, obviously when young people have that kind of weight, the young people are still fairly flexible, but, we're all desk jockeys. Most of us just sit around. We're not, working outdoors and doing things like that anymore. We're not an agricultural society as much. And especially the golfers, they're desk jockeys. And so you lose a lot of your flexibility, and you don't do anything to really, you're like, yeah, I'm fine. I go for a walk. I'm good.
Well, and
No.
I think, to your point, the lifestyle definitely becomes less active, and I think there's a couple factors, unfortunately, that play together that actually, you know, don't help our golf game and just our our health and wellness in general. And that is, as we get older, if we look at, there's a type of imaging called elastography, which actually can look at how elastic tissue is. So think
Hmm.
of like you got like a brand new rubber band sitting in your drawer versus you got the rubber band that's been sitting there for like 5 or 6 years. A little
It's a
doesn't,
good
if you stretch it
description.
too far, it may kind of break. As we get older, we trend more towards that, if particularly if we don't do anything to address the issues. The other things that we really see are, particularly if we have injury, as we age, obviously we've had more battles and bouts with injuries, ankle sprains, surgeries, whatever they may be, back spasming out. Every time those things happen, there are significant trigger pointing. Think of healthy tissue as spaghetti parallel on a plate. So all the strands of spaghetti are parallel to each other. When we have injuries, we develop a lot of trigger points, which take a fork and twirl that spaghetti around the fork. And
Hmm.
when that so when we have injuries, we get a lot of twirled up spaghetti. And if we don't do the work to release that spaghetti to get it back parallel, they just kind of sit there, and they're what we call latent trigger points. And when those are present, we further decrease our elasticity. So we could move even further towards that 5-year-old rubber band that's not as elastic. So you have kind of a couple things of one, just as our tissue ages, it will naturally become a little less elastic. But then you have all these other accelerants of, we sit at the desk, we sit in the car, we're not as mobile. We're not a big agricultural society anymore. And then also we see, the life happen, quote unquote, life happens of, we were injuries, we pull hamstrings, we throw out our back, all of those things. And then we don't necessarily get the right treatment to get the tissue back to fully healthy. So all of those things kind of, compile together to create the beer-bellied, non-mobile, no, over the top, a lot of side to side and up and down golf swings that we tend to see a lot in amateur golfers.
Right. And I would think that when your body is not as mobile or flexible, and you do have extra weight in your way of your swing, um, you're going to be incredibly inconsistent as well. It's going to be very hard to have a consistent swing.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. And
going,
so,
yeah.
and I think, we also have seen, shocker in some of the research we've done, if you're listening, you haven't heard us before, we're quite the geeks at Par for Success. Um, but when we look at these guys, girls who don't pass the rotational mobility test, there's 4 of them that we can obviously dive into as we talk
Oh, we
here. But
will.
there's, if you don't pass one of those 4, when we look at it on 3D, so we hook them all and we have people swinging, we hook them into the 3D systems, so like you see in like video games, so you can like track their whole bodies and how they're moving, and we will track the sequencing. So when do the hips move, the upper body, the hands. It's called the kinematic sequence, and there's a ideal, efficient way where the lower body moves first, and then the upper body and the hands come last. So the people that struggle with mobility, they aren't able to rotate well. It's funny, we'll have them swing 10 times with all that stuff on, and then if you just looked at the graph spread and you said, hey, how many graphs of different people are here, you would say it's 10 different people, but it's literally the same human. But because they can't rotate, they have to compensate and come up with all these different workarounds in order to get the club to the ball. So consistency at the like core level of just how does the body's not able to move consistently. It's kind of ludicrous to expect ourselves to play consistently. Um, and then you go, and the fun part is, now we go ahead, we identify the areas that are not moving the way they should. You fix those rotational areas, and then we retest. And now all of a sudden you do kind of the same drill. All right, here's 10 swings. How many of these are the same people? And you'll have 4 to 6 of them that actually look kind of like the same person. And so that's what we hear a lot of times when people just improve their mobility. Hey, I feel more consistent. My ball striking seems like I'm not having all these. Maybe I'm only missing it one way now instead of missing it every way possible, right? So you start to see more and more consistency that occurs. Obviously, club head speed goes up, and people like that too. But I think the kind of the undertone or the surprise kind of outcome that people start to realize is, holy cow, like I'm actually swinging more consistently. I'm hitting the ball more consistently. And it's amazing when you are hitting it more consistently, you can start to improve on those technical sides of things as well a little bit easier.
All right, that's amazing. I have so many questions. I can't believe it. We're going to take a timeout. We'll be back right after this. All right, Chris. Now you've said some things here that kind of I need for you to describe what Par for Success does. Par4success.com, and that's the number 4. Because you've talked about research, but it's not just you don't just teach yoga, and you're not a chiropractor. Like, so what is it that you guys do exactly?
It's a great question, Fred. So we focus on the physical side of golf from a couple arenas. So we look at it from just general health. We have I'm a physical therapist. We have 5 physical therapists on our team, and so there's definitely a rehab and medical background component of how we look at golfers' bodies, and whether it's helping them get back from you know joint replacements to back to playing, or just the back injury or elbow injury. So kind of helping people rehab and getting back into the game safely. But then the cool part is then that we also have the strength and conditioning and the performance side, where we look at people, if they're coming from rehab, how do we transition to actually becoming more of a performance or fitness based program. People who maybe just want to pick up some yards and play, hit the ball 10 yards further. And then we have a large number of people that we work with who they maybe are, they're coming close up onto retirement, or they're a couple years into retirement, and they're like, hey, my body's not really feeling so good when I'm playing. I want to keep playing for another 10 years. Like, when I stop playing golf, I want it to be on my terms. And so that's where
Yeah,
we really help a lot of people. And we pride ourselves on really trying to be the best as we can, and the best in the world at giving golfers longevity. And that can
awesome.
be for juniors playing up and through college and professional ranks. For adults, it's, I want to play until I don't want to play anymore. So that's where we really focus a lot of our research, and everything is really on the physical side, and what are the things that we can do physically to help us play better golf and do that longer.
How large is your team?
So we have a team of 26 at this point. So we've been,
Wow.
yeah, we have a large part of, we work with golfers all over the world. We have a big virtual program where we work with people. We're located in Raleigh, in a physical location, but we've got coaches all over the world that work with, I think we're on 4 or 5 continents at this point. So it's pretty cool to be able to reach that many people all over the world and help them continuing to enjoy the game that we all love.
Awesome. Awesome. Talk more about, because this is relevant to a global audience, about your virtual program. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we work. So we've been talking a little bit today about, like, for instance, just how well do you rotate, right? So when we work with people, remotely, so we've worked with thousands of people who we've never actually set foot in our facility. We have an app, and we do live coaching where we can do an assessment. If we're here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and you're in Japan or Australia, we can do live assessments and figure out how mobile are you. What are your strengths, your weaknesses. Because of all the data that we have, it makes it really easy for us to test the variables that actually matter and that are going to move the needle when it comes to club head speed or getting rid of pain, or whatever those areas may be. So that's where we work. We all do everything one-on-one. Coaches working with with the golfers, and we build out the customized programs for them to do wherever they are. We had one guy in the UK who didn't have access to a gym during COVID, so he used rocks that he weighed out in the back of his yard. he
Wow.
had he had
Awesome.
bands and rocks. That's how we made programs for him. And then obviously there's the other end of the spectrum. People have full decked out gyms, and they have any piece of equipment that you could ever imagine. That's where we custom build everything for the golfer based on what they have. If they're traveling all the time, we deal with a lot of guys who are on planes, but now that kind of we're on the back end of COVID and people are traveling back a little bit more regularly. So it's a flexible program that allows people to be successful, and so kind of as effective and efficient as possible. So you spend as little time as possible in the gym and doing the golf stuff, as little time as possible doing the fitness stuff, so you can do more of the golf side of things. Which, if you've any of the golfers you've met, very few of them are gym rats. Most golfers are like, I'll work out. How little can I work out and still be able to play golf as good as I want? And
Yeah.
that's kind of where we come from.
And where's the beer?
After the post workout beer, that's a thing, right?
No, no, no.
It shouldn't be,
Unbelievable.
but unfortunately, it is for a lot of people.
So, do you give exercise programs or yoga programs? What do you advocate?
So what we advocate is it depends on the person, right? So for instance,
Clearly,
when we do, we start with an initial mobility assessment, and we go through, looking at how well you rotate, the four main rotary centers, the hips, the shoulders, the thoracic spine, which is the spine between your low back and your neck, and then your neck. Those are the four big areas where we need to rotate. So we'll start there. And if somebody doesn't even get past there, there's going to be a lot of tissue work. And we talked earlier about the spaghetti and the trigger points. So we want to get the tissue healthy, right? We want to help them be able to actually, move in those joints with healthy tissue. So that may be for somebody, that may be where a lot of their focus is, especially if there has been pain or injury histories. We'll addressing those areas as well too. But now let's say person passes, they have great mobility,
fabulous,
and they
fabulous.
want to pick up speed. Then we may be looking at, hey, let's take a look at how fast can we get you? Maybe it's speed training, maybe it's strength training, maybe it's power work. That's where really, I wouldn't say we do one thing. It's we do a lot of things really well based on what the individual brings and what they're looking to do.
Great. I'm curious. Have you heard of yoga?
I haven't.
Joga.
I have not heard of
It's
yoga.
okay. Look it up. It's not easy to find, but there's one player on the Golden State Warriors. I'm a big fan of the Warriors because they're my local team, so I watch
Yeah.
every game, and I'm obsessed. So there's one player, Kevon Looney, who played every single game last year, and he had a history of being um, injury prone and not being able to sustain a season. But last year, all through the playoffs, played every single game, and he was one of only 6 players in the NBA that played in every single game for their team.
Wow.
And so now he's got this workout program, Joga, that he's advocating to other players who've had injury issues like James Wiseman,
Yeah.
and they're swearing by it. So I looked it up. It's yoga for jocks or jock yoga,
That's fun.
right?
Yeah.
And so it is yoga, but there's strength elements to it. They're not just normal downward dog moves. They
Right.
focus their moves into strength gaining,
Mm-hmm.
including flexibility. Look at it, and if anybody's has any experience with it or knows anyone who teaches it, I would love to have a conversation with them because I'm fascinated by it. I've always loved yoga, and I have a lot of flexibility and mobility. I'm very lucky at that. Um, uh, Last week I was recently playing in Arizona, and I played with my nephew who's in his late 40s, and he couldn't believe the rotation that I was able to get
That's
on my
amazing.
swing. And this kid's a big hitter, and we were going neck and neck. And he just like, come on, it's not fair. You're almost 20 years older than me. How do you do that? I'm like,
Yeah.
I do yoga. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, and I think when we talk about, I think there's a lot of people in the fitness and performance worlds who are like, either they're pro yoga or you don't like yoga, or pro Pilates. And, oh no, I don't ever do Pilates, or, all I do is, barbells, or all I do is, kettlebells. There's all these like schools of thought. And,
Right.
and I think the big thing is for athletes to stay healthy, whether they're in the NBA, whether they're in golf. There's a combination of all of it. There has to be the ability for the tissue to be pliable and to get to the positions that you need to get to. But we see this particularly with women. You may have a lot of flexibility and mobility, but if you don't have the strength to support it,
Mm.
that's actually having too much mobility is a thing, and that can actually increase your injury risk. So that's where it's understanding, what is the person attempting to do. And for golf, we're trying to swing the golf club and hit the ball and probably hit it as far as we can, and then eventually get it in the hole. And understanding the physical demands that places on somebody, and then understanding the human body and where are those potential roadblocks that are going to cause problems. And unfortunately, for most golfers, it's in those four rotary centers. 95% of people fail at least one of them. It's incredible, and it's kind of a combination of the Western world that we live in, and then just aging as well that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we don't want to hit every shot as far as we can.
Not everyone.
Let's clear that up. I mean, off the tee box on par fours and par fives, most of the time you want to hit the ball as far as you can. Maybe on a par five, you want to hit your second shot as far as like I had a par five the other day. My second shot was 125 yards because I wanted to leave myself 110 to get. So you don't
to get
always
in.
want to hit it as far as you can, but you want to be as accurate as you possibly can. All right. We're going to take another timeout. And then when we come back, we're going to get into your 4 rotational mobility tests. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right. We'll be right back. All right, Chris, one of the things about Par for Success is that you not only offer an online 5-minute test, which you guys have been very generous. Our Golf Smarter community can go and check out at par4success.com/golfsmarter, PAR number 4 success.com/golfsmarter. It's a free 5-minute test, right?
It's totally free. Yeah. Just for, as a thanks for everyone who's a part of the show and the Golf Smart community.
Tell me about it. Tell me what it is. What the
It's
test is.
in my opinion, it's the most important test that any golfer can take. There's 4 main rotational centers that we have. We have neck rotation, shoulder rotation, trunk rotation, and hip rotation. And really, in less than 5 minutes, anybody taking the test is going to be able to see very, very clearly. We have videos and pictures that show you, hey, this is good, this is bad, and basically, if you fail any of those tests, what that tells you is if you then look at your golf swing and you see, let's say you're standing up out of posture, or you're swaying and sliding too much side to side, or you're coming over the top, or you're not initiating with your lower body, whatever the swing fault may be, pretty much every single swing fault that I can think of, generally, if you don't have the ability to rotate, that can be one of the big drivers of why you're doing that, the compensatory motion. So from a performance standpoint, passing all of the tests does a wonderful thing of basically, well, depending on the scenario, the wonderful thing is now you know that physically there's no reason why you can't swing the golf club in the way that you want to. The flip of that is now you don't have a physical excuse. So if you're not doing it, then it's totally on you. So that's where I say it's kind of good, it's kind of bad.
Right.
But then the other side of it, though, too, Fred, is if you guys, anyone listening, is back pain, has golfer's elbow, tennis elbow, wrist issues, hip issues, shoulder issues, whatever the aches and pains associated, particularly with golf. When you go through and you take these tests, particularly if you fail the hip test, which pretty much everybody fails the hip test, and then the shoulder test, those are the 2 big rotational joints where most of our rotation comes from. We also see we're talking about Par for Success, we have a physical therapy and a medical kind of, creation story, right, or origin story. That's a big part of where we're from. We also see, even if in non-golfers, people with back pain and elbow pain, that those same areas are locked down and don't move well. And the reason we get the injuries and the pains in those other areas is because it's compensatory, just like our swing faults. And so a lot of the times the true root cause of an injury or pain stems from one of these main 4 joints. And where we feel the pain is just because we're overusing that area to try to make up for it. So even like one of the reasons I say this is one of the most important tests for anyone to take, definitely if you're a golfer, because this impacts everything you need to do in the golf swing, but we're all humans too. And, back pain, not just in golfers, is one of the most common injuries that people deal with in life, even if they don't play golf. And most of those issues stem from problems in these areas. So it's 5 minutes literally can give you so many answers, which is, I think it's one of our goals is just to educate and give people the best information possible so they can, empower them to really kind of help themselves, be better, whether it's a golf or just in life. Or both.
Or both. All right, then I have to ask something very selfish here. I'm a right-handed golfer. You talk about elbow pain. Mm-hmm. So for a right-handed golfer, which elbow and where on the elbow would that pain be? I'm not going to tell you what I have, so I'm going to see where I'm going here.
So that's a great question. So I have one piece of the only piece of information I do have from you is your 6 handicap now. So I know that you're single digit handicap, which is going to lead me to believe you probably have a forward shaft lean at impact. If that's the case, the most common area that we will see elbow pain on a golfer, a good golfer, who basically think of forward impact position and the pain is associated with golf, we'll tend to see it on the inside of the lead elbow or the outside of the trail elbow. Those are the most commons that we see. Is that where it is? All right. Science
Yes, it
wins
is.
again.
Inside of the lead elbow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do I
Yeah.
do about this?
So,
Oh,
yeah.
I got a
So, and
boo-boo here.
this is a great example that, for everyone listening,
Wait, you're telling me I have this because I hit the ball well?
so think of it as all injuries, or I shouldn't say all, unless you hit a root or, that
Yeah,
would be like an acute impact injury, right? Most injuries in golf are repetitive use. So
right.
if you typically have a forward shaft lean, right? So your front wrist is going to be bowed kind of back towards your back leg a little bit, which is going to really use the muscles on the kind of the pinky side of the
Mm-hmm.
forearm, which attaches into this part of the elbow. So
Mm-hmm.
that part, every time you hit, that's when we talk about wrist and elbow pain. That's what takes all of the vibration coming up from the ground and then into the elbow. So someone who does not have that forward shaft lean, elbow pain tends to be flipped, because especially if they're flipping their wrists, through impact or scooping or something along those lines, that's where we'll tend to see it flipped in the other direction.
So when you say flipped, you mean on the outside of the lead or on the other arm?
Correct. Yep. So we'll see it on the outside of the lead and
Ah,
the
okay.
inside of the trail. So it just flips on each
Ah,
elbow, just because of
okay.
because of impact position and where that tends to be.
But I don't have any elbow pain on my right hand.
Nope. And so it's not like a
Okay.
100% of people are going to be here. I'd say it's 75%. So
Okay.
if I'm in Vegas, I'm going to make those two bets, and I just won some money on this one. So, right, I'm going to play the numbers, and most of the times that's where it will be. There's certainly anomalies where we'll have good players who maybe it's on the outside of the lead arm, where it's just kind of, and it may be because they don't have shoulder rotation or hip rotation, and so that's taking more of the brunt. But that's where we would look at, your elbow pain. Obviously, you would want to treat that locally and get rid of the elbow pain. The real question then would be, though, how's your lead hip in rotation? That's the absolute most important. Does that actually clear 100%? And how is your shoulder rotation externally? Because if those two aren't clean, that's where the elbows will tend to take more of the force, brunt force. So it's very rare that we'll see anyone. Actually, I can't think of anybody that I've ever seen with an elbow issue or elbow pain, or they come in complaining, "Oh, I got an elbow problem." I can't think of one person who I've said, "Yes, you have an elbow problem." I said, "You have
Mm.
elbow pain, but your problem is actually coming because the hip doesn't move or the shoulder doesn't move." And that's where a lot of people get stuck in these, we call them the vicious rehab cycles. Well, you'll go in, you'll say, "My elbow hurts." They'll give you an injection or something. They'll do something to your elbow. And then you stop playing for 2 weeks. You're like, "Oh, I'm good." And then you go back, and a month later, "Oh, it's back, right? Oh, I just got a bad elbow." Well, it's because we treated the symptom and we didn't actually go and treat the root cause, which is, why is that elbow getting overloaded?
I just realized that for people who live in, say, the Northeast, Midwest, where they only get to play anywhere from 5 to 7 months a year
Mm-hmm.
because of winter, that must be a great opportunity to rehab or just not do any, get the, anything that's bothering you kind of disappears and like, yeah, I'm fine now. And they don't have to deal with it until the new season
Until
starts.
the
And it's
new
like,
season comes along.
wow, why do I have that pain again? That's the weirdest
Yeah.
thing. Oh, you're playing
This
golf. It's
Well,
golf
so,
related.
and it goes back. So if you remember earlier when we were talking about the spaghetti on the fork, right?
Yeah, I love
Like
that.
right now, like your elbows, I'm assuming, not hurting you right now, just sitting here, right? If we go play,
No,
maybe it starts to hurt more. So
yeah.
you have right now that tissue, you have those latent trigger points. They're just sitting there. It's unhealthy tissue, but they're not activated. They're not active and causing pain. So that's when people take we always joke, you go to an ortho, they're going to say, "Hey, take 2 weeks off. Here's some ibuprofen. If
Yep.
it's not any better, come back." You go back, they say, go back a second time, they'll give you an injection. Hopefully they told you to do some rehab or something in between. And then you go back a third time, you go back 3 times, and then they'll cut you. But
Eh,
unfortunately,
yeah, I'm not taking the 2 weeks off. Come up with a
yeah.
better idea.
Well, and that's where you have to treat the actual quality of the tissue so that we can
Mhm.
actually have a chance at fixing the true problem. And that's unfortunately, a lot of golfers do exactly what you said. they're, maybe their elbow's hurting now. They're in the Northeast. They're like, whatever, I'll just shut it down for the year. They
Right.
come back, next April after the Masters. They're all jazzed up, ready to go. Oh, my elbow! What the heck? Oh, I must have a bad elbow. Well, no, you just have tissue that you could have fixed 6 months ago, and it wouldn't be a problem anymore. But unfortunately, we have this thing in our human brains. If it doesn't hurt, then we don't worry about it. But we got to take care of it, during that time.
So that's a great piece of advice right there. If you're having any aches and pains and your season is coming to a close, which for a lot of people it is, right about now,
Yeah.
go deal with it before
this
your
is the-
season starts again. This is your time to
this
do
is the
this.
time.
I mean, sure, we can give you all kinds of off-season drills and hitting into a net or virtual hitting and stuff. But if you have aches and pains, deal with it.
Yeah, this
Deal
is the
with it now.
100%, because what we see, Fred, is we see if somebody's willing to actually deal with it. So they go to the powerforsuccess.com/golf smarter. They take the home assessment and they're like, oh my gosh, I failed my hips and my shoulders, let's say. Literally in 4 to 6 weeks, we generally will have it to the point where, like, hey, you now passed those tests, and now you have, let's say you had a 6-month off season. Now you still have 5.5, 4 to 5 months left, where now you can work on your golf stuff with good mobility and doing it the right way. And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that practicing correctly actually is better for you than practicing incorrectly. Does that lead to better results? I don't know. But
Oh, absolutely. It's, and over practicing incorrectly can really kill you.
Yeah. So, getting your body to the point where you can get to these positions and get to where you want to be. Now, all of a sudden, now your practice in the off season becomes that much more effective.
Yeah.
So it's really, it's a fundamental building block that is so easy to control. It's so easy to fix that when we do that, it just makes everything else in the golf world better for everybody.
One more time out. We'll take it right now. Find out what's happening on Golf Smarter Mulligans, and we'll be back. Okay, earlier you joked about if you were in Vegas. Well, just like you being in Raleigh, North Carolina, that people can't come to you anymore, just go to the App Store. You'll find a place where you can put those bets in. There's plenty of places to bet online nowadays.
That there are.
All right. More on the mobility tests. Can we break each one down?
Yeah, definitely.
There's 4 of them?
There's 4 of them. So the neck rotation one, that's probably the easiest to describe just, over the air. And that's really, if you think of, wherever you are right now, if you're driving, it's kind of like checking your blind spot. So you're going to rotate. So your chin should be able to cross over your collarbone. That's the bare minimum pass that we would like to see. Ideally, if you can rotate and then bring your chin down so it actually touches your collarbone. If you're driving, please don't do that one. I don't want to be responsible for any accidents. But the most important is that you can rotate that chin over the collarbone. Now, the neck is an interesting one for people to consider because you really actually only need to rotate it towards your lead side. That's the only side that, if you're limited, actually will negatively impact your golf swing, just because you won't be able to see the golf ball if you can't rotate. People don't think about neck rotation because they think, oh, my head stays looking at the golf ball the whole time. My head doesn't move. Well, in actuality, your neck is rotating, but it's your trunk that's rotating, and your neck is rotating on top of it, right?
Okay.
Your neck is still rotating to to your lead side. It's just, instead of, if we're driving, we look out the window, it'd be basically, your body's doing the moving instead of the neck. So any, standing up out of posture, that's probably the biggest one that we'll see. If the neck doesn't rotate well, we'll see, improper weight shift, reverse weight shift, those sorts of things.
Yeah, I'm struggling with a bit of that. I get this weird noise in my neck that's like, oh, what is going on there? And a lot of times, especially looking over my left shoulder, I gotta turn the whole
body with it. Yep.
Yeah, I just write it off to old age. But you're telling me no, there's something I can do about this. Huh?
Yeah, I haven't met anyone yet where it truly was old age. Is old age, playing a role in terms of your tissue isn't as elastic? Yes. But is the neck making that noise just because of old age? No. I know many 80-year-old guys who pass this test flawlessly and have no issues.
Uh-oh.
Right. So in actuality, you bring up, this goes back to the elbow, right? You said, I turned my neck and I got a neck problem because it kind of makes a noise. The
Yeah.
most common cause of that, what you're describing, is actually bad shoulders. So when the shoulder girdle the tissue doesn't move well, that negatively actually means the neck has to work harder to rotate. So upper spine, so your thoracic spine, so think of the base of the neck down to the low back, that and your shoulder are usually the problems when we have neck issues. So if you fail this, so everyone listening, if you don't get that neck over, or it hurts when you're rotating that chin, it's actually, yes, you failed the neck test, but it's probably not a true neck problem. It's going to be something definitely more so related to the shoulder and the upper spine.
Wow. All right. Number 2, after neck rotation.
Yeah, so the next easiest would be then the thoracic rotation, which is the part of your spine kind of from the base of your neck to your low back, and that's an easy way to test that. Everybody sits down and they just cross your arms on your shoulders and try to rotate your upper body as far as you can. There's a couple nuances that if you guys grab the assessment, you'll be able to see specifically to make sure you're doing it correctly and not whole body's not rotating. But generally, we like to see 60 plus degrees of rotation is what we want to see in that area. And similar to the neck, if you can't rotate in this area, you're going to see those kind of increase side to side. We'll see up and down in the golf swing just to make up for the lack of the ability to rotate. The interesting thing about this test, though, Fred, is most people actually do pretty well on this test.
Mm-hmm.
And you test, and so when I do like presentations, we'll do the neck first, then we do this one, and everybody's like feeling great. They're patting themselves on the back. I got great mobility. Then you ask them, you say, well, do you get a full turn in your golf swing? Or you say, why are you here? I want more turn. And you're like, but wait a minute, I just passed half of the test. Like, why do I need more turn?
Yeah,
So
right.
I always use the analogy of think of a big juicy burger, and you got these two buns, right? And the buns are your shoulders and your hips, and they're moldy as all heck. And so you're not going to eat that good juicy burger, right? Because you don't want to deal with the moldy buns. And so a lot of golfers have really good center. They got good meat in the middle, but the next two tests are the hard ones, and that's the shoulders and the hips. And because they're so tight, they actually kind of mask how good their rotation is in their spine and in their neck. And so that's why, because the shoulders and the hips aren't moving well, that's why we get a lot of back issues. And you have two of the classic ones from bad shoulders and hips, elbow and the neck crinking.
Yeah.
And that's where the shoulder one and the hip one, they're a little more difficult to describe in terms of the motions. But the interesting thing that is cool with the hips and the shoulders is it's actually a different side that's more important for each. So if you think about it, for a right-handed golfer, their right arm is the right shoulder is the most important, but their left hip is the most important. So lead hip, trail arm are the two most important ones to pass in the hip and the shoulder tests. If we think about a left-handed golfer, it would be flipped, right? So it would be left shoulder and it would be right hip. That would be the two most important. Now, we'd like you to pass all of them. But if we had to, you kind of you're putting your feet to the fire and say, I can only pass two. The most important would be trail shoulder and lead hip when we're looking at those, because of coming down through the downswing. We have to be able to rotate that shoulder backwards to get the club on plane, and we need to be able to clear that lead hip in order to get to a good impact position and fully weight shift to the lead side.
Wow. Okay. So are we done with shoulders and hips?
Yeah, shoulders and hips are tough to describe in a audible way. That's what I would really
Use your
encourage people.
words. Come on, Chrissy. Use your words.
And believe me, I have tried hundreds of times. It's really easiest. Look at a picture, grab the assessment. It's free. Look at the picture. There's a video there too that describes it to you guys. We would need another 45 minutes for me to use my words and attempt to describe it, and we'd put a couple people to sleep. Yeah, we're not going to do that. So yeah, that's where I would say that the thoracic spine and the neck are really easy to describe for people to kind of give an idea of that rotation. Shoulders and hips are by far and away the most important for everyone listening, and definitely grab the assessment because, like I said, there'll be pictures and videos, so make sure you do it the right way and get a true assessment of where you're at.
Cool. Again, it is Par 4 Success, PAR number 4 success.com. And is their website. They're based in Raleigh, North Carolina. But you should go to parforsuccess.com/golf smarter to get your 5-minute test. And it's free. And it's going to help you out. And then you can reach out to Chris and his team if you need more information, more help. Where else can we find you on the web besides that?
Yeah. Yeah, obviously the website, but then we're on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and pretty much all the major channels. Just at Par for Success.
What do you do up on YouTube and Instagram? What kind of stuff do you put out there?
Yeah, so YouTube's if for anyone looking for a lot of like more instructional, in-depth type stuff, talking about
Oh,
the
wow.
why to do thing, why to do this exercise, or the different parts that are important. YouTube is we put out something at a minimum. We release something every single week, and we go. There's we have lots of different types. We have for you geeks out there. There's some longer ones talking about the science. For those of you who are just give me a quick hit. How do I do this? There's those kind of quick here's 2-3 minutes of how to get through an exercise and when you would want to do it. So yeah, definitely YouTube is probably the best place for getting more information and ways to help your golf game.
Well, that you just gained some new viewers on YouTube because when you talk about the geeks, if they're still listening,
Yeah.
they're the
They'll be
geeks who
there.
love this stuff. They're going to YouTube. So Par for
They will be.
Success. Oh, Chris, congratulations on your growth for your company. I'm really excited for you. It was great to have you back on, and thanks so much for sharing all my aches and pains.
My pleasure, Fred. I'm going to make sure to send you a couple of our YouTube videos for your elbow. That's for sure.